time. Millionaire LPG babe with news from stats all before that no promise play. Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.
Hello and welcome to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast. A hard-earned point in the capital keeps Forest in touch with the Champions League pack. I'm your host, Greg Oram, along with my fellow Forest fanatic from across the Atlantic, Richard Spray.
Headed away as far as Nico Williams takes a touch. Yes! And deflected in by Murillo. Murillo gets a touch. And it flies in off the Brazilian who scores for the second time in his Forest career.
Yeah, you know what? Murillo, again, stepping in. It wasn't the thunder blast that we thought and hoped it would be. It was a little toe in the end. But Richard Spray, how are you doing this morning?
Yeah, all right. I mean, for only the third time in the season, we've come back to at least secure some points, even if it's not a win. But, feeling pretty positive about that. We took one, a slight step forward, which is a good thing. We didn't lose the match. Feeling pretty good.
Excellent. Recent form hasn't been our friend, and Forest needed a turning point, a moment, a sign that they are well and truly still in this fight. It wasn't pretty, and in fairness, they were holding on at the end, but that little flick from our magic man Murillo to equalise and grab the point on the road may well be the defining moment of the run-in. 3 games to go, and it's in our hands. We will chew the fat on last night's point at Palace before concentrating on the visit of Leicester City to the world-famous City Ground on Sunday afternoon. With Richard and I to do all of that, we have Danscape with us at the moment, and Raf, who's just disappeared, will be back in just a moment.
John Force strong with your young Skywalker, but you're not Jedi yet, my brother, that's clear. You have learned much, young one. You will find I'm full of surprises. Your destiny tied to me, Skywalker, true. Rasta Obi-Wan knew this to be true. No, all too easy, my brother just see it so. Perhaps you are not as strong as Babylon Emperor thought. Impressive, most impressive. Rasta Obi-Wan teach you right. You have controlled your fear. Don't release your anger. Only your hatred can destroy me.
There we go. A little bit of a Rasta Wars to introduce the boys this morning. Raf kind of managed to get back with us for the end of that. How you doing, Raf? You all right? Is your internet working now?
Yeah, man, the force is not strong in my internet today. I tell you that for sure. It's just dropping in and out. So if I just start getting a bit glitchy, then it's more like a glitch in the Matrix rather than the force of Star Wars today.
We'll have a word with R2 to get his little thing out to try and tune you in a bit better. Danscape is with us. Morning, Dan.
Good morning. I'm all right. No internet issues this end so far, but I do keep getting a flashing light on my webcam, so I might disappear. Also, it's obviously something going on today.
That must be the Babe station you got connected to.
I was going to go. That sounds like a bit of a Paul Morley Sexyland thing.
Someone's just donated some money.
Don't forget to get involved in the comments. A few of you are already. We want to hear from you and hear what you think. Thank you so much for being with us. And of course, those tuning in from later on Apple or Spotify, we are grateful for you catching us on the playback. We always ask you to like and subscribe because as ever, we were trying to get our numbers up. It's been really good of you so far to hit all the buttons if you have done. But if you haven't hit the button on this video, please do go and hit the like button. You can catch us on X and Facebook, Instagram and TikTok as well. Alrighty, I will quickly go to the comments because a few have come in quite early as well. Jay was with us really early. He says, morning fellas. He says, am I the only one that's nervous thinking we'll drop out of Europe altogether? Don't be. We think that we're going to be okay, but we're going to talk all about that. Brandon says we're going to get Champions League. And so don't worry indeed about any kind of Europe. He says he's Champions League. Brucey's with us, says Murillo scoring was a big red heart for him. And also Way NFFC adding £2 to the pot, says qualify for Europa Champions League. We will, young Skywalker. We will indeed. Tricky Fred. What are we all thinking about Morgan Gibbs-White? He looks to be stressed out there with his own teammates. He didn't like all the hand flinging. We will talk about Morgan today. And Pat Brett from over the Atlantic, I think, is with us as well. Good morning to all of you and everyone else. Okay, Richard, we have had pretty poor form lately, I guess, when you weigh it all up. And the Brentford game was a real kind of letdown. And so going to Palace, tough game away. What are your general thoughts on how it all turned out?
Yeah, I mean, at first pass, you say it's positive. Got a point, as I mentioned earlier. But then when I watched the interview with Nuno, with Colin Frey, I don't think he was overly excited by the point. But I mean, obviously, getting a point versus not is a good thing. But he said basically it's kind of a wait and see. It's a TBD scenario based off of how things go with Leicester. So because we clearly need the 3 points at Leicester to stay relevant in that Champions League fight. So yeah, I mean, I thought, we put in a performance in the first half, which showed a little bit more composure, a little bit more intensity, obviously retained more possession. I think we had 56% possession, which isn't everything, as we know, given how we played all season long, given how we know Palace is sort of set up as well. That's similar to us. But, the chances are just not there necessarily up until the end of that first half, where obviously Alanga had the opportunity to put one away. And as Raf kind of talked about in our WhatsApp group, got a little bit disrupted through the process, so it made it a little bit difficult for him to get a good accurate shot. So yeah, I thought it was great to see that first half performance, because that's sort of the inverse of what we've seen in the last few matches. But at the same time, the second half we looked a little bit suspect, a little bit lacking in terms of getting on the counter again. Yeah, but I mean, as a general whole, I wasn't too displeased with things. Good to see Sangare out there putting in a performance. Wasn't phenomenal by any stretch, but it was certainly solid. A couple of players that we hope to give a little bit more. Morgan being at the top of that list didn't quite have the 7 out of 10 I think we need to see from him at minimum in most matches. But outside of that, I thought Murillo was fantastic. So good things. Just a little bit worried about Murillo's status moving forward. Hopefully he's all right. But yeah, it can't be anything but positive at this stage, just moving forward with some points and trying to continue to try to stay relevant within that top 5 fight.
Yeah, I think going back to the preview we did the other day, we talked about what the team might look like. And I think if I remember rightly, Raf, you did throw Sangare's name into the hat as like, is there maybe a player there that's going to get a chance? And I didn't see it happening, but it did happen. And all of a sudden Sangare was getting a chance, and you turned into me being super, optimistic about what he can do and what he might do. And my opinion is that I think it smacked a little bit of desperation for him to be given the midfield berth in our most important game of the season. I just didn't think really it was warranted, unless he'd seen something in training. And the performance that we got out of Sangare was pretty much exactly what I expected. Nothing special, did all right. Didn't make any mistakes, got his standard yellow card, nearly got sent off. I don't really want to see him again this season, if I'm honest with you, unless we really have to. What about you, Raf?
Harsh. Massively harsh. I think that you've got like a biasty that's unconscious or conscious towards him.
Not at all.
I don't think he was any
no
worse
there. I want nothing more. Hang on a sec. I want nothing more than Sangare to be a well beater. I want absolutely nothing more than that. But he hasn't been.
Yeah. So from my perspective, he does. My thing I worry about him is that acceleration of that first 2 yards where potentially players can get around him. And I do split Sangare's skills into 2, the defensive side and the attacking side. Defensive side, he actually was all right. There were tackles that he put in. He got the ball back quite a lot.
I agree.
He actually made an interception and tackle that gave us pretty much our best chance, I would say, from turning the ball over and then releasing the ball straight into one of our big key chances as well. He also swung balls in for Wood as decent crosses that were going into the box as well. So as an all-round player, I actually put him ahead of some of the players that are a number of the players that were playing yesterday. And it's not easy coming in like totally cold, having had no football compared to absolutely everyone, to come in and get up to speed in matches. So I think he did at least what was expected of him yesterday, given the situations.
No, I agree. I that's what I'm saying. He did what I thought he would do, but I just don't think he's the answer. Long
term, is he the 6? And that's why I'm saying it's the attacking versus the defensive side. The 6 needs to be elite at defending, right? And what Sangare gives is he's actually weirdly more of an 8. Like he comes to light when he's got the ball at his feet and moving and finding passes and pinging it around. What we don't need is another 8, as far as I'm concerned, really, to be honest. And we'll come on to Morgan Gibbs-White, I'm sure, in a little bit. But it's for me, he just doesn't fit what we've got, where we need an out-and-out 6. And I just don't think that's that. But I don't think yesterday he did himself any harm at all from potentially being used for the last 3 games of the season. And I don't think he'll massively let us down if he gets put on.
No, I think what I'm trying to say is, for the last 3 games of the season, I just don't put him ahead of any of our other midfielders in terms of a starting place. And last night didn't do anything to change that. And bringing someone in with the he's been back actually since the 1st of February. He's actually been back. He was on the bench and came off the bench against Brighton 7-0. So he's been back for a while. He hasn't just come back from injury. I know you said you thought he was out for a lot. He was out, but he wasn't out. He's been back for a while. 3 months he's been back for, and he hasn't been given a start in that time. He's had so little minutes. It's almost like, why is he getting minutes on the pitch in the starting point away at Palace in our most important game of the season? Dan I'm not trying to go and knee high on Sangare for no reason. I'm trying to be as objective as I possibly can. I just don't understand why he was put into the team last night. Can you shed any light on
it? Just picking up on Bruce's comment in the comments there. I'm looking forward on the back of this to Sangare getting the Ballon d'Or next season after we're digging him out.
I'd love nothing more if he was a Forest player getting the Ballon d'Or. But it would be very Forest for him to go somewhere else and be amazing.
It's possible. Look, I think what he brings is he's got a physicality to him that none of our other central midfielders do have. When he comes on the pitch, and I noticed this the other night at Brentford, he is a big guy for a central midfielder. So when he's at full fitness, when he can charge around the pitch, he is quite a challenge for someone like an Eze or a Sarr to get past and get around. So I think the reason we probably, and I said on the preview that we might see Danilo as an extra sort of holding midfield option, and it's Sangare, but I think we were trying to obviously to make sure we had the extra bodies that could deal with Sarr and Eze in a defensive sense. And that physicality from Sangare should be what he brings to the team for me. He is quite good on the ball. He does struggle with pace. So there's strengths and weaknesses, but the physicality to challenge big, strong players like Eze and Sarr that are quick and trying to get into those, trying to cut into those central areas. He can bring that. I thought his performance was okay. I thought he did what he needed to do. I thought actually he was good on the ball in that he wanted to keep possession for us. He didn't just get it one touch hoof. He tried to play it, which occasionally got us into a bit of trouble. But obviously you need a bit of that bravery for us to try and break out quickly when we're under pressure and we're trying to get to the other end. And I thought he brought that in a way that Yates probably wouldn't. So if it was a choice between Sangare and Yates, I think he showed that he can potentially bring a little bit more there. And obviously, when Yates came on, he didn't look up to speed with the game, and I thought we lost a bit in midfield when Sangare went off in that respect. But as you said, he picked up the yellow card, which he seems to always do around like 50, 60 minutes, and then he always looks at risk of getting another one because he does kind of dive into challenges a bit. So it was a mixed performance from him. I wouldn't single him out to say anything particular about that performance. That's exactly what you'd expect him to do week in, week out for me. And it's kind of why I would never have said, let's go and spend all of our money on a 6, because it's very rare they're going to put in a performance that's going to be a show-stopping performance. Their job is just to break up play and give it to someone else. Their job isn't to be on the pitch and score 3 goals and have a standout performance. It's hard to always justify spending all your money on that position. I know there's a phase in football where every club seemed to be doing that, but for me, that's why it's difficult.
He came with a hoo-ha though. I mean, everyone. I'm one of these fans, I'll be honest. I hadn't seen an awful lot of Ibrahim Sangare before we were looking at him. I didn't really know much about him, if anything at all. And all of a sudden, the whole fan base, oh my God, he's a great, God, if we get him, he's a world beater. And I'm thinking, fucking hell, we're going to sign Sangare, 30 million. We spent a lot of money on this guy. He's going to come in and he's going to be dynamite. But obviously we haven't seen that. And like you say, he did fine last night. I'm not digging him out for a bad game. He did everything you guys have said. I agree with. He did fine. I just didn't understand why that was now being used in this game.
Yeah, I think just fresh, like I say, physicality and fresh legs is I think, the reason. Just wanted to freshen it up because you knew that challenge of Eze and Sarr was going to be there. And some of those other players are struggling a bit with the number of games, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you make a really good point, Dan, about the physicality. Richard, I felt the opposition started better than us again last night, but not for long. We seemed to kind of take more control. And I think, as you touched on in your opening comments about, we had a bit more possession. It was a game of few chances. We go to Palace, and I think all of us predicted a draw. I think Dan might have pumped for a 2-1 win, being optimistic. But, and we hope that obviously would have happened. But it's been draws all the way against Palace. I think, who is it in the comments was saying that they'll take a point all day long? It's Pat Brett. I'll take a point at Palace. We usually draw there. Shutting down Mateta and Sarr is not easy, but we did it. So, yeah, that might link into what you were saying about Sangare and what kind of job he was doing. But, Richard, gave a few chances. I mean, there was that one counter at the end. Take us through that when Dominguez and Gibbs-White kind of hooked up. Should Alanga have done better?
At first pass, I thought I put it in the chat as well. I kind of reflected and watched it back, and you could see that, there was potentially some space. So what happened, obviously, is we retained possession. I think it was off of a corner, maybe. Morgan had a nice little, what Morgan does really, really well, right? Which is that sort of jukey sort of turn. And then he got the ball to an advancing Dominguez coming from away from our penalty box. Dominguez took it a good portion of the pitch and had a beautiful pass. I mean, that was not something I'd expect from Dominguez. He kind of looked like Morgan in that moment, where he kind of did the outside of the boot with just the right kind of spin and pace, and then immediately Wood looked up, saw Alanga advancing, got the ball to him first time, and Alanga had, he was charging towards goal. And what we've seen when he does that on a couple of occasions, he can slot it away with that left foot, even though it's not his favorite foot. And it looked like he maybe had a more of a chance if he had gone sort of to Hendo's left. But he sort of, I'd have to go back and really slow it down again. But it did look like the defender coming behind him disrupted him just enough to where he couldn't get a good angle on the shot. And he really just hit it right at Henderson, because I think he sort of started to kind of almost try to go cross goal. And it just ended up being an easy save for Dean Henderson. But, that was clearly the best opportunity, and it showed what we're capable of. I mean, that's pure Forest on the counter when you see things like that. Players in sync and not overly thinking the moment, and just being decisive and getting the ball to the right spaces and the right players in that advancing position. Because sometimes we get the ball up in a really nice pass to, say, an Alanga, and then you look around and there's nobody near him. Wood still charging up, trying to get into the box for him to cross or something of that nature. So it was real. Everyone was sort of in sync in that moment, which is really nice, really a beautiful sort of poetic build-up play, but it just didn't have the finishing, which, I mean, has been kind of the problem recently. I think Lewis McGugan touched on it in the Forest Focus post-match. It just doesn't seem to be that conversion rate, that ability to find that chance in the final third, that last ball, that clean finish that we've often seen, and Wood being kind of at the top of that list. I think he's had 1 goal since he came back from his injury. So we're just not seeing the same sort of quality in the box and in that final third.
I think the defender got a little block on that. I think that's a good block.
Yeah.
I think if you watch, I haven't watched it this morning, but it looked to me like he just got his foot on the ball.
Exactly.
Changed the direction of it a bit.
I thought Woods peeled off to receive the pass from Dominguez well, and then to find Alanga. It was a fantastic move. And Paul says in the comments that there was space to Henderson's right. And that's what I thought as well. I thought if Alanga had driven low into to Alanga's left, Henderson's right, low and hard, then I think he scores. But obviously, if Sputzer maybe should have winners. I mean, they didn't really have many chances either. They tried to, hit us on the counter a couple of times. I think Domingos picked up his yellow, was tactical yellow. Sangare got away with an early yellow, actually. On other days, I thought the ref was a bit card happy, Raf. Did you think that the cards were coming out a bit early? I mean, let's also bring into the conversation now Gibbs White, because we need to talk about him. Looks like the Man City are ramping up their interest in him. Fabrizio Romano has been on X stating that Man City are now making moves. Is it likely that his head gets turned? No, I don't mean his head gets turned. I mean, I think what I'm trying to say is, does his focus switch off? Or will he want to leave us in the best place he possibly can? I expected last night from Morgan, actually, him to grab the game by the balls. And he hasn't done that enough. And so where are you on Man City coming in? What kind of money do you think it will take? And, does this underline what you've always thought about him, Raf? Because you've never really been completely sold, have you?
Yeah, I've been a bit of an outlier. I rate Morgan Gibbs White. I just don't. The team supposedly being built around him is no longer the case. You've got Anderson, you've got other people, and I don't know what position he plays. Yesterday, can you tell me what position he was playing? Like he was creating problems, not solutions, as far as I was concerned yesterday from his positional play. Harsh, I know, but I'll come on to it. Referee very quickly set his stall out very early by giving yellow cards for things that were on the edge of, was it a yellow card, but it was early. And from that perspective, he then set a precedence, and he kind of just kept going with the precedence that he had set. So it was consistent. It was right on the edge of over officiating, but it was inside the boundaries of all of these tackles. There were some pretty, players are off their feet quite a lot of the time. It was a feisty affair yesterday, but at the end of the day, that's the most yellow cards in a game, I think, this season by any team. We got 8 in our history. I think it's the most that we've got in a game, something like that. So it was a bit on the harsh side, but at the same time, there weren't any yellows where I just looked at it. I went, that is absolutely categorically not a yellow. So I just think it was the nature of the game that was there, and he was doing it to the letter of the law. With Morgan, what I will say is that Man City can want him all they want. That doesn't mean to say the fact that he's going anywhere, because at the end of the day, he's under contract, and it's Marinakis' call if he wants to do anything. Is Morgan the type of character that will down his tools and basically sulk if he doesn't get the move that he wants? TBC. I don't know. And I wouldn't even try to guess what is in his character or anything else as well, because I don't know the lad.
But isn't this the window we got to sell someone, Raf? I mean, I think we've probably got to sell someone now, haven't we? And is it kind of almost like a coming together? We've got the asset.
And I've got a piece that I'm going to do that I've been talking to Rich about, where I've done an analysis using my tool as to exactly where we are financially for PSR this season, and probably where we will be. So we can do a piece on that in the future. But ultimately, when it comes to Morgan, very, very quickly, if we're going to sell him, this is when we sell him, unless we keep him for quite a while longer. He's got 2 years left on his contract, so his optimal value is right now. If we keep him for another year, we have to put him on a new contract, otherwise his price will start diminishing. That new contract, everyone's getting new contracts at the moment, will be a huge pay increase, which massively affects our bottom line for next year. That also means that when Man City come in for him potentially in the future, or someone else, they have to pay him even more than he's on probably at Forest, which then reduces how much they're willing to pay us in fees as well. I don't see him getting back in the England squad anytime soon, especially if you look at yesterday's performance and Tuchel was watching, and you look at Eze and what everyone else is doing at the moment. So it's not like we've suddenly got a huge price that's being put where he's getting more England caps and playing for England, which is pumping his value up. His metrics for this season are, to be fair, for a 10, woeful, like of what they should be for a 10. So this is the time, if we are going to, with no sentiment whatsoever and just football brain and finances of what else we need on the pitch, I think this is the time to sell him for top dollar and do a swap for a Man City player, because then we can do an Anderson Vlad PSR swap type thing, put the value of what a McAtee might be, that Man City and us win massively by inflating the price of what that player is. And that hugely helps both teams on PSR. So there's a double win in this from actually selling him to Man City, if that's the case. And they seem to be bulletproof from any form of punishment for buying players for whatever they want. So we might as well, it's the one team that we can sell to in England where it doesn't make a difference of how much they spend. Well, actually, or Chelsea either, for one of the two of them.
It's always dangerous, I think, for anyone going to the likes of Man City from a team like Forest. Grealish did it from Villa, and he did well when he went there, but he seems to have gone off the ball, perhaps. But, some people are thinking that maybe Morgan Gibbs-White will go and be a bench player. He may well be a bench player to start with. Look at the really bad case of Calvin Phillips, whose career has been ruined. So, Richard, I'm going to come back to you before I bring Dan in, because obviously you are Morgan Gibbs-White's biggest fan. But now that we are where we are and Man City look like they're readying a bid, and everything Raf's kind of mentioned about, the right time, how are you feeling? Are you at peace with the thought that Morgan Gibbs-White might be leaving Forest this summer?
Yeah, I mean, it vacillates day to day. I think everything Raf said is exactly right. I think when you look at it from a head over heart scenario, it's clearly a benefit for the club if we can get that kind of price point for him in that 80 to 85 million pound range, which I know is a lot. And as others have said in the chat, maybe his metrics don't necessarily add up to that. But it could be that Man City do fashion him as something other than a 10. And so from that perspective, maybe he can provide value to them. I mean, they've got some aging players in that midfield that they're going to have to likely get rid of or will get rid of, Kevin De Bruyne being at the top of that list, unfortunately. I when someone like me who has been absolutely praising him, and I got to say, I mean, Raf and I have had a good battle when it comes to our perspective on him. I think when I did the piece where we all did sort of a piece on players earlier in the season, I had said his metrics were trending towards some of the similar sort of metrics you're seeing in a lot of 10s in the league. Madison, Eze included in that. Paquetá, I think, was another one, but unfortunately it's just seemingly has either tapered off or not been quite sustained and improved on in the second half of the season. I mean, we just can't have 0 goals and 3 assists from a player in his position who's supposed to be the pivot point for all that we're doing from an attacking standpoint. It just can't be that. As Raf said, it's sort of trending towards woeful for the kind of role that he plays. I think he is very versatile. I think he does put in the work. He does put in the time and energy to play the position to the best that he's trying to play it. But as I think Bruce alluded to, there's just moments where mentally I think he's trying to do too much. And he's not simplifying the game a little bit. When he acts a little bit more instinctual, when he's a little bit more, case in point, that volley that he had, against Brentford. Was it Brentford? No. Who was it? We hit the post like 3 times. Gosh, my memory sucks. Sorry, guys.
Man City in the Cup?
Man City Cup, yeah. You can see that there's that instinctual player to me is something that maybe Pep thinks he can unlock a little bit. Maybe he feels like he can add a little bit more control to help him expand what he's doing, to enhance what he's doing. But I just think it's his time to move forward. I mean, as you've long contended, Greg, that ultimately we reach these points with these players at the age that he's at. He's right at that point where he's ready to, he's going to get that bigger contract. And to Raf's statement, we just cannot sustain that from a wage standpoint. And we'd be better off putting that money somewhere else when there are holes to fill. Because if we do get to Europe, which we likely will, whether that be Champions League or Europa, the point being is we still need depth, because we're not going to be able to play a thin squad throughout the entire season. We have to have people on that provide, and not only depth, but depth with some quality coming off the bench as well to impact the game a little bit more. And we just don't have that current state. So,
see a few names in the comments. McAtee's one, O'Reilly's another. My gut feeling is that they're really good players, and that O'Reilly's a really good player. If Gibbs-White goes to City, I just don't see them giving us one of them, because it's almost like I'm not sure that Gibbs-White's going to be better than them. If he's going to City, I think it's to play with them. But this new Man City team is going to be built. Dan, I want to get us back onto the match. So we'll go talk about the penalty incident. You can give us a quick thoughts on Gibbs White as well, because I know you've probably got a few bits to say. But I mean, look, clear as day penalty. Could Sales have done anything other than stick his leg out?
No, not on that. I think it's so quick. It's what he's got to do. He's got to try and block the ball, and the player's touch, unfortunately, just is good enough that he's got control of it. So it's a foul as opposed to. I think if the player knocks the ball straight out of play with a heavy touch, you maybe get away with it because you say, well, he was never in control of the ball. But it's a good touch, and it's a clear penalty. And then it's a weird penalty from Eze where he stops and starts 5 times. Which you don't know how they get away with that. But it was a shame because I thought at that point it was turning into our kind of game, being end to end. That Chris Wood chance was just before it, wasn't it? Not long before, and the game had turned to our favour, whereas the first half was very cagey. And I thought we probably could have got out of them more in the first half, but in the second half it started to turn into our kind of game. And I suppose just summing up my thoughts on the game is performance-wise, I don't think it was much different to what we did against, say, Brentford. I don't think it was much different to a lot of games we've seen. And it's probably not a lot different to when we went on that winning streak and we were going away to Everton and we were going away to Brentford and winning those games. Is the difference was just those 2 chances, the Elanga chance and the Wood chance. If they go in and we go 2-0 up or 1-0 up, I think we hold on to it. It's just that difference, and that's how we were winning those games. We weren't playing drastically better back then. I think we were doing the same thing, but we were just taking those chances. And unfortunately, these things do tend to level out. And if we took those, I thought if we took the lead last night, we'd have kept a clean sheet. Basically, once we'd gone ahead, I think we'd have done Morata time, all that. We'd have seen it out. So it was a shame that moment happened. On another day, we win it 2-1 with those 2 chances we've got, like we have the rest of the season. So that's it on the game. On Gibbs White, I think. Look, all I'll say, I suppose, is the only way to judge Gibbs White is in a year's time. If he does go, let's look at where we are. Let's see what we miss without him. Let's see what we do or don't have. That's the only way to judge these moves, isn't it? Really, to get proper accurate, because we'd have said the same when Nuno replaced Cooper and all that. You just have to see where you are once it's happened. And, at this point in time, I feel like there's too much negativity around him. A lot of the comments online and everything just seems to be trying to point out everything he's not doing, as opposed to, what he still is bringing to this team. I think in terms of the energy, it's, maybe it's fair enough. I just think, let's get to the end of the season, support him, get behind him. We just need a couple more good performances. I think he does want to send us off on a high, and that's probably why he's a bit more animated and a bit more stressed and tense on the pitch, which perhaps doesn't help him. But all I know is he's done brilliant things for us so far. And he gives 100% every time. And that is not always the case for players that join a club for a big money move. And, particularly in a position like that, where it's an attacking position, he brings a lot to us. I'm sure there are other players out there that can do the same. But yeah, let's see what he brings. And a club like us cannot turn down 80 to 100 million pounds for any player, I don't think.
No, we've got a lot to get through. But just before we do move on to the break, I think I want to say on Gibbs White that players come and go, and none of these players that were brought in were coming forever. And we'll have new people that we'll love wearing a red shirt and we'll fall in love with. Gibbs White's been fantastic for us as a club, on and off the pitch. But ultimately, as you just touched on, we perhaps never thought we were going to get that connection with the manager that we had with Steve Cooper again. And yet, lo and behold, the next guy through the door, it's as good, if not better, the way. And he's a different character entirely. So different people will come through the door and represent the club. And it's about the evolution of the team and the club in terms of the ground development, the team development, the infrastructure. It's all going to go up a level, and Europa League is still going to be a fantastic outcome if that's what it is. We would have snatched and bitten your balls off for Europa League at the start of the season, and we'll talk more about that in the second half. But on the match, I quickly want to round it up by saying, Murillo, he's been fantastic for us, and so sticking his toe out like that, on another day it flies over and all that kind of stuff. And we came back from a losing position to grab a point, something that we haven't done enough this season. So coming back, and that's what I spoke about in the opening intro to this episode, is that we need a turning point. We need a moment, perhaps, to kind of cling on to. It feels to me like they are bursting at the seams a little bit, running out of energy, running on fumes almost. Sosa coming on, didn't really get a kick Was that his fault? I don't know. But, it shows the lack of strength we've got in the squad depth. The team after Murillo scored, and certainly after he went off, we didn't really offer very much, and we were hanging on at the end. 8 minutes of added time became whatever it did because of all the stoppages. Maybe that did us a favour in stoppage time, because I don't think Andy Madley added on anywhere near the amount of minutes that he should have done after it went past 8 minutes. And I was happy just to grab a point and get the hell out of there. So look, we come away from the capital with a point. We're going into the last 3 games, and we're going to really talk about the nitty-gritty of that once we have chatted about the visit of Leicester. So we'll let you have a look at some lovely cheese, and then we'll be back in a minute.
The Cheese Trader, based on Grape Lane in York, is a cheese lover's paradise. Home to some wonderful specialty cheeses, relishes and chutneys, and also with a fantastic street food menu. Try their loaded fries or posh cheese on toast. It'll be the best you've ever had. Owned by Forest fan Stu Freestone, the Cheese Trader proudly sponsors Talking Reds. Quote Talking Reds every time to get 10% off your order. The Cheese Trader and Talking Reds, the perfect cheesy mix.
I think everybody knows that Stu Freestone, the Cheese Trader, is our sponsor, and he is a legend and he is a Forest fan. If it's your first time coming to check out what we do, he is a Forest fan in York with his own business. So please support him if you can, and all the links to his information is in the bio. Leicester City come to the City Ground for our penultimate home game of the season. For me, it's win or bust. It's all about what we do against Leicester. They can't seem to score many goals, but let's start this part of the episode by taking a closer look at our opponents.
Send them back to East London! We send them back!
I hope anybody's not stupid enough to write us off.
Okay, many pundits alike have already penciled in 3 points for Forest. Danscape's already penciled 3 points in for Forest on this one. Are they able to hurt us, Raf?
Oh, it's a good question. It's a good question. And without tempting fate, it would be so Forest for us not to go and get 3 points. Or is that old Forest of yesteryear, and now we've turned into new Forest that don't lose against the bottom half, but usually actually win? Again, slight other blip against Palace, but they're on the up and up. So with Leicester, we really should be, and even to the point where even they've got like a backup goalkeeper, like their second goalkeeper in at the moment, and other bits and pieces where they've got some injuries. What's good to know is that I don't think that Rude is going to be pulling any tactical deviations from what he seems to be set to be doing, which for those that are listening and not watching, that is a very Forest preferred 4-2-3-1, which is what they've been playing for a while. There, as I mentioned, I think they're basically Hermanson, who's in goal for them, is injured, and so you are going to have their backup goalkeeper Stolansky or something like that is in goal for them. Now, when it comes to their back line, you've got effectively their back two, which is Connor Cody and Face. Now, Wout Face is definitely someone to get at. He is a shocking defender, and especially with balls in the air, like he tries to head it up and it just goes straight up in the air. He hasn't got very good ball awareness. He's got a rash foul in him as well. So I do think that should be targeted, and would, if he's looking to target one of them. Connor Cody's actually pretty decent. But just Face is the person to kind of focus on. And then you've got Thomas, and I think you've got Justin, and Justin's come back. Justin provides them a bit more of that, what you look at firing down the wing and actually trying to get us attacking as much as possible. But it probably will be those two as the fullbacks. When it comes to the middle of the park, Ndidi is the one. Like, he seems to be the player that, again, I talk about engines, what makes games tick. On SofaScore, unsurprisingly, Leicester do not have a single player over the whole season that's averaged 7 or above. But Ndidi is the closest to that with 6.97, right? And he is that kind of engine room in the middle. Weirdly, the only other person that came close to having a 7 is their goalkeeper who's injured, right? So this really isn't like a superb team. We should be beating them. Who's going to pair Ndidi in the middle of the pitch? I actually think it will be Samari who's going to be in the middle. And Samari acts as that kind of slightly more enforcer. And that's the kind of steel that they're going to need. Whereas Ndidi gets around a bit more. Actually, Ndidi has 4 assists from that midfield spot. So he is someone, again, he's more of that engine, a little bit more of that creating force in the midfield. So if we're looking at, again, shutting down what they do, smother Ndidi, this could be a Yatesy job of getting in there and just smothering Ndidi and just having done with it. And that will actually stop pretty much quite a lot of their productivity that goes forward. It is Jamie Vardy. Write him off at your peril, even though he's, 38 now, I think, or just about turning 38.
Yeah, 38.
But if Murillo is not fit and we have Morato in there, or Bolly, Danscape, if Bolly comes in as well, those two are not mobile, right? Bolly's got an excuse. He's old. Morato's 23. He's not mobile, right? And Milenkovic is not mobile. So actually, Vardy could be a bit of a problem unless we come up with a plan with his mobility, even at his age. So we've got Vardy up top. Then you've got El Konis on the left-hand side. He is actually pretty much their threat and their output down the left. He takes their corners as well, and he really pushes the envelope on the left-hand side. And so he really needs to be locked down, but you'd hope the fact that Ola would have him wrapped up. Then you're looking at, right, who else is going to be behind? Now, Dickavorder-Reid is injured, right? If we have a look at who's injured, Ricardo in defence, injured. Mavidi, who is a good player for them, injured. Dickavorder-Reid, who actually gives them some sort of utility, he's injured as well. Fatau as well, he is injured. Now, Buonanotte is 75% maybe playing. I really hope he's not, because he's got that USP in him. What we've seen in some games, that he can create something out of nowhere. But if he's not fit, then I reckon it's the young Irishman, he's about 23 years old, McAteer, who will probably play on the right-hand side. And it's going to be a Cooper favourite of an Ayew that's probably playing in that 10 spot, even though he's probably a striker. And that will probably be roughly where they are, just because of the injuries that they've got. But if we have a look at the threats of what they're doing, again, I've talked about Ndidi, I've talked about Alcounis as well. I've talked about why I'm a little bit worried about Jamie Vardy. But if we have a look at it, Vardy's got 8 goals and 3 assists. Alcounis has got 2 goals, 3 assists. Jordan Ayew has actually got 5 goals this season, right? So we look at Ayew, we might have a little bit of a chuckle, but he has actually, in a very bad team, scored 5 goals. We look at our team, who scored more than 5 goals in our team, right? So we need a bit of perspective here. Buonanotte, if he's fit, 4 goals, 2 assists. And then you've got McAteer with 1 assist, Ndidi, like I've said, with 4 assists as well. So that's really where their threats are coming from. If they are going to score, or they are going to be offensively charged, that's really where it's coming from, I would say. So, but we should, with what we've got, we should be able to match up against them. But that's kind of my view on really where they are.
Okay, thank you very much. You are listening, watching Talking Reds.
You'll never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
My view, guys, is that we need a statement performance. We need a home victory against Leicester that isn't just a scrappy 1-0. They've been relegated. They've been really poor. They can hardly score goals. You know, I really, really feel that what would do us the world of good is an obvious thing to say. It's like Brandon says it in the comments, a 5-0 Forest win. Now, I know that we haven't been that free scoring. Okay, Brighton at home aside, but a 5-0, 4-0 win for me would do absolute wonders for this team going into those games against West Ham and against Leicester City. We will take a look at how we might line up in just a moment, but we'll go straight to this.
I'm a stat man. Moraes fazendo som, fazendo som. Pedrinha Moraes fazendo som, fazendo som. E Pedrinha Moraes fazendo som.
There's that Willy Bolly header at the end. I'm still holding out for a big Willy Bolly moment before the end of the season, Danscape.
This could be it. This could be the game for him. With Murillo potentially injured, he might be in there. So just popping through the form charts, look, there's not going to be many surprises here in terms of obviously Leicester being a poor team, a struggling team. So when you go through the form charts here, as usual, you want to be top of the league on all these metrics, left to right, and you can see that our form is still mid-table-ish, even though it's not great at the minute. There's not many teams in good form, apart from, unfortunately, our rivals, it seems. Leicester's form is down the bottom, as you would expect. Their away form is down the bottom, as you'd expect. Goal scoring, worst in the league. Goals against, sort of 15th in the league. And in terms of their sort of their chance conversion, their goal difference against expected goal difference, they're actually 9th, but that's kind of because they don't really create a lot. Their expected isn't that high, so it's not hard to beat it, really. Whereas we're still second in that respect. We are still clinical, obviously, Murillo's toe, proving that yesterday, for example. We still kind of get a goal out of limited chances. And then the set pieces, again, mentioned these last few times. Look, we're still the most vulnerable team in terms of the number of shots teams get against us from set pieces. But Leicester are the worst team in the league in terms of creating chances from set pieces over these last 8 games. So it's not an area of sort of particular concern for this game because they're not great at that. So that's that slide. And then the underlying numbers behind it all. I suppose this is where you'd expect more of a gap between Forest and Leicester on this chart, as you can see. So the sort of expected goal difference, we're actually in that relegation realms at the minute in terms of the chance quality, the chances we're creating, the number of shots we're having in games. We're down in that bottom 4, closer to Leicester than you would expect us to be, as we know from what we've seen in these performances. Luckily, our shot conversion is still up there, as we said, which means we're outperforming the underlying numbers at that end of the pitch. And I think yesterday we probably outperformed the underlying numbers at the other end of the pitch because I think Sells made a couple of very good saves in that game. That's just the sort of underlying numbers whereby we're probably a bit closer to Leicester on those things than you'd like us to be going into this game if you want a nice 5-0 win. I suppose.
I do.
Yeah. And then these charts are just for fun, really, just because Leicester have been so ridiculously bad this season. This is the clean sheet chart. So as you can see, we've had a good, reasonably good record this season at clean sheets going through the season. If you look at Leicester on the right, you will see that they've managed, I think, I'm going to have to check this is right, but they've only managed 2 clean sheets all season. I've not checked the numbers. I'm sort of trusting my chart here, but 2 clean sheets all season. And between those 2 clean sheets, it's something like 27 games between clean sheets, which is just unbelievable, really, for a team in the Premier League that's trying to survive relegation. So that was just a fun graph, really, to see that bad. And similarly on this one, so this is the opposite. You want to be low down on this chart. This is how often you fail to score a goal in a game. And you can see that they've just gone, since Steve Cooper left, it's just been constantly worse and worse in terms of just getting through games without picking up a single goal. And they've only done it recently against Southampton, which is not saying much. So again, just a crazy comparison of a graph between 2 teams in the best team in the league, really. The best league in the world, I should say. Not the best team, definitely.
You've got a current the maximum points total chart. What does this one mean?
Yeah, I mean, this is not about this game. These were if you wanted to talk about the running, really, and where we are, positions, points, combinations, all that sort of stuff.
Well, we do want to talk about the running. So I'll go back and I'll pull this down. We'll bring those slides back up again in a moment. But Dan, thanks for your stats. I mean, Richard, the visit of Leicester, obviously, so-called local rivals, they've been relegated already. Jamie Vardy looking for his 200th Premier League goal. He's leaving them at the end of the season and all the rest of it. So, you can make headlines out of all of that to your heart's content. I guess what I'm coming to you for, really, first and foremost, is who's going to play in this game for Forest. Are we going to see an unchanged 11 from what we saw last night? I've got the foot up on the screen for those that can't see it. The back 4, everybody knows. it had Dominguez and Sangare in the midfield, Anderson, Gibbs, White, Alanga, and Wood in the attacking 4 positions. Hudson-Odoi, we think, is going to be out for, well, Nuno touched on it, he's going to be out for Leicester. My gut feeling is that he's going to be out for the rest of the season. If he can get back, it will only be Chelsea, and even then it will be a bit of a risk, which they might go with because it is the last game. So what would you like to see, Richard, in the team on Sunday?
Yeah, I'm with Raf. I think we Wood up top is pretty much penned in, inked in. Gibbs White in the 10, Alanga in one of the wing positions. I might consider Sosa where Anderson is and move Sanderson. Anderson down to where Dominguez is here currently. Who Dominguez is playing in the 8 on what's on the FOTMOB right now. I'm going to go with Yates in here. I think because it is against a supposed rival, you'd think Yates coming in would be of value. I could see the benefit of potentially having Sangare, because if he puts in a performance like he did last night, which again we recognized wasn't spectacular, but he did what he needed to do, and he functioned as he should function in the game. So having him in there, given the personnel that they're fielding, I don't think is a terrible thing. But I would go with Yates in this particular scenario, and I might move Dominguez out potentially. But I think I like the idea of, what he does, his versatility to drop back. Dominguez, I would say Sosa.
For who?
Dominguez.
Yeah, but you say you want to move him out, but I'm asking you for who? You're saying Sosa.
Sosa.
So, yeah,
Dominguez.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
you've got.
I'm with you. I'm just. You were telling me I want to move Dominguez out, and I'm trying to work out who you're thinking of. And I've been kind of backing Sosa a little bit lately, but did he do enough last night to get in your team?
Yeah, but I don't think it had anything to do with his unwillingness to get the ball. I think it was just the way that things unfolded throughout. I mean, how many minutes was he on? 20 minutes, maybe, if that.
Yeah.
So he's not getting a ton of time. Yeah. So I definitely think he has it in him because he's shown flashes of it. And in a game like this, it's like I want as much offensive firepower as I can get because I'm not worried as much as Raf's kind of talked about. I mean, indeed, he can do some things. There are some players like Bonanate, if he comes on, that can be problematic. But I don't think the personnel that they're going to field is going to be overwhelming for what we are currently putting on the pitch right now, which is Anderson, Yates in the midfield, and then you've got Sosa, Gibbs White, Alanga in that sort of those forward roles. And I'd like to see Sosa get an opportunity because he doesn't have exactly the same level of quality as we're acutely aware of when it comes to Callum, but he has similar sort of, he can be very tidy on the ball. He's got a decent amount of pace to him, he can drop back. He's not a world beating defender, but he can do it. I don't know. I just like the idea of giving him an opportunity to feature from the off and be a little bit more front foot from the very beginning. And not that you can't do that at all with Dominguez, but he just plays a little bit different and he tends to float and roam more. Whereas Sosa, I think, kind of tends to play a little bit more in that position. You could make the case for flipping them because I think there's going to need to be a little bit more. We're going to want to be more dynamic, and Alanga provides that dynamism, and the tendency is always to be playing on that left side and operating through that left side. So maybe you flip Alanga and Sosa in that sense. But Sosa's got, he can cross the ball pretty effectively. He can take free kicks. He can take corners. I mean, he's got some skill sets to him as well that I think provide opportunity. And we've seen him finish in some of the goals and some of the matches that he's played. So you've got current state, Wood up top, Sosa on the left, Gibbs White, Alanga, Anderson, Yates, and then you've got the normal back line. And I would probably flip Murillo for Bali. I just think this is one of those matches, even though we know Vardy's a bit of a different style of striker in the box. I fashion Milenkovic and Bali to have enough short area quickness to manage that. So Bali for Murillo.
So I'm with you on Sosa. I mean, I was only asking the question, did he do enough last night just to, get your response on what he was doing and why it wasn't working out so much. And I thought you're right. The team last night weren't doing enough as a collective. I want us to win this game convincingly. And I think that means that we put more attacking players on the pitch. I love Dominguez, still love him. But yeah, you're right. He is more of that sure and steady player than outright, let's go and get at them. It might be Jota Silva that comes in, but I'm in favour of Sosa. My gut feeling is that Murillo is going to be fit. I don't think he wanted to come off last night. I think that he maybe tweaked it. So my gut feeling is that he's fit. I'll leave him on the screen.
Yeah, if he's not. If he's fit, great, please.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. I think as much as we want to see the big Willie Bolly coming on, I think it probably would be Morato to start, but we don't know. But we do love a big Willie Bolly on this podcast. So let's see what happens. Raf, anything different for you in the team? I mean, are you backing your man Sangari to stay in?
No. I think it's horses for courses of what we need, and I'd actually put Bolly in over Murillo. Murillo scared me yesterday when he was on the pitch. He was taking these runs out to try and intercept the ball, getting done, falling over, and then not running back into position. It happened a couple of times. I just don't trust him in a 2 at the moment. He's still got a bit to learn, and it's just not the right time. Willy Bolly's been there. He's done it. He's got the experience. I would put him in if Murillo is not fit. I really value Sosa over Jota for 2 reasons. One, yesterday, Alanga on the left-hand side didn't work for me. He was being doubled up, and he wasn't going on the outside and being able to put in balls with his left foot. His left foot's not bad, but it's not his right foot. And when he's on the right, the confidence to, like we saw, like in the last couple of games when he has been on the right, the left back gets booked within about 25 minutes of just trying to deal with him because he's got the confidence to go on the outside and he can first time fizz a ball in even with half a yard, which is what Wood will feast off of. So I really want Alanga, as much as I've kind of lamented like a season ago where the Alanga-Wood connection from Alanga off the left-hand side and hitting the byline and cutting it back just hasn't really worked like that as much. I'd put Alanga back on the right. Also not starting Jota. I think this is going to be a seriously feisty game. Leicester are going to want to do us in some sort of way, result, injuries, whatever they can do. They just want to cause us problems for the rest of the season. If Jota starts, he's going to get booked inside 15 minutes. And then we got a problem worrying about him for the rest of the game. So I think he comes on as a sub to limit the amount of time he gets to collect 2 yellows. And we do need to have a word with Anderson. Anderson has been our best player, but man, has he been fired up and pretty hot-headed in the last couple of games and really mouthy at referees and stuff. This game, he's got to be, I expect him to excel in this game, but we need Yates 100% next to him, talking to him to get him to relax and play to his strengths and not overboil. So for me, I love this team for those reasons, and I wouldn't change it from what this is.
Okay. We've got lots to get through, Dan. So just very, very quickly on the team. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I actually expect Jota will start over Sosa. That's my expectation from what Nuno will do. I think this is the kind of game where he probably just fancies that Jota will play on the right and Elanga on the left. I thought Sosa didn't do too well in a few duels last night where he just looked a bit weak. And I think playing a full 90, you obviously got to do that a lot. I think when we've seen him before, he's come on when we're chasing a game and you kind of got the ball, players stand off you. I think it was harder for him to get hold of the ball last night. But look, I don't know how we create more chances. That's what we're going to have to do in this game. If you want a big win, we're going to have to create more chances. And if we just keep putting out the same team in the same lineup, I don't know how that changes. So I wonder whether there'll be something different in this game again. Something that frees us up to attack in a less predictable way. Because I think we're just a bit predictable and there's too much space between our front players. So, whether it's you go back 3 and then you really push your wing backs on so that you've got a different kind of width, something different. But I feel like we're just a bit predictable still at the minute.
Yeah, I was thinking, as much as back 3 does sound too defensive, Ola Aina looks back. He was back last night. I mean, he went on one or two runs. I mean, he is so crucial for us. So if we're going with our width coming from Aina and Williams and Alanga and Silva on the pitch or Sosa, it might even be that the back 3 comes in, especially if Murillo is out. Possibly, would you do Milenkovic, Bolly and Murillo? Maybe, maybe not. Danilo might be an option in the midfield to do something different with Anderson, perhaps. I mean, we are playing Leicester, right? So we're all slating them, rightly so. They've had a terrible season, and our players are better than them. So I think you're right, Dan. Doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome at the moment is not necessarily the right idea. So try something different. I agree, but nothing too crazy so that it all kind of falls apart. Right, we've hit the hour mark, guys. And so I wanted to obviously revert back to the running. And Dan, you did prepare a few stats to take us through. So there's lots of different connotations. Forest grabbing that point last night means that It helps us definitely when we go head-to-head with Newcastle and Chelsea on goal difference, because it's not 3 points gap at the moment, it's a 2-point gap. So you pulled together this maximum points total chart you were going to tell us about.
Yeah, so it's just to clarify, where teams could get to. If obviously we don't know what's going to happen, but Manchester City can get to 73 points. Newcastle can get to 72. Chelsea can get to 72. The most we can get to is 70. So we need Chelsea to drop 3 points, in comparison to us, which obviously could be that final day game. I suppose what last night's result didn't help is it didn't put that gap between us and Villa, because previously we could get to 72 points and they could only get to 69. Whereas now, obviously, they can get to 69, we can only get to 70. So it's just tightened that gap with Chelsea, with Villa, behind us, where a win would have obviously pretty much, you'd have thought put them out of the picture. So, yeah, it's that was just to set the scene on where we could get to and where other teams can get to and what we sort of need them to drop. And then this is just a forecast based on the recent form and reverse fixtures of where, form obviously kind of goes out the window when you get to 3 games left. But just to see that, unfortunately for us, our form puts us out. We don't finish. We finish behind Villa as well on our recent form. But I do think form goes out the window a bit. Reverse fixtures actually puts us into the top 5 because of the results last time out against the teams that sides have got to play. Villa in particular struggled in their last round of fixtures against the teams they've got, but then you've got the context of the Europa League and the teams that they're playing in that. So it's really hard to predict. It was just to kind of show that, we have... Previously, we were top of these charts, and now we have slipped back, whereby on form, the very final bit of the chart is the average of those. On form, we'd get to 66 points, which is probably not enough. I think we are going to need 68 realistically at the minute.
And your final chart is the remaining fixture kind of outlook. My gut feeling is that it would do us a favour for Newcastle to beat Chelsea. And so Chelsea then, I expect them to beat Man United, and then it would do us a favour for Arsenal to beat Newcastle. That kind of working out the best scenario for us. If we beat Leicester and West Ham, that would put us on to 67 points. If Newcastle beat Chelsea and lose to Arsenal, they'll be on 66. And if Chelsea lose to Newcastle and beat Man United, they'll also be on 66, which means that our game against Chelsea, we could afford to only draw that and still be okay. So I know that obviously it's yes, buts and maybes question, but to me that does feel quite. It's not outlandish to suggest that Newcastle at home to Chelsea is 3 points for them. It's all about what Arsenal do. Is it going to do us favours, Richard, for Arsenal to go out of the Champions League tomorrow against PSG? Because if they're in the Champions League, obviously they got all their eggs in that basket and the eyes off the league. My gut feeling is we want them to go out to do us a favour because they're not going to want to surrender second place. I think Arteta will be quite keen for them not to surrender second place. So therefore, when Arsenal welcome Newcastle to the Emirates, I feel more confident that Arsenal get a point or 3 definitely if they're not in the Champions League final. So all the connotations are there. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think, we chatted a little bit about this too. I mean, at first pass, it didn't seem to be, I wanted to start eliminating teams from contention and take it out of that competitive, portion of where we're at to try to get into the top 5. But to your point, Arsenal, yeah, I think them losing Champions League would allow them to switch back on to the league, do us a favor and start getting wins again and putting away some of these teams that we're competing with to get that 5th spot. As we've long said, I'm not gonna fret. I would love to get Champions League. But ultimately, I'm just excited for the idea of potentially even getting the Europa. So I'm trying to find some inner peace here and not stress too much about the results of other teams. But in the scenario that you outlined, I think that becomes the most favorable. I mean, as Paul's long contended, it would be great, to see Chelsea, the match against Chelsea, not have any real bearing on the situation, that we are already secure in that. But obviously, by only getting a point, by losing against teams like Everton and Brentford, we put ourselves in that position where it just seems like that's where it's headed. And so I like our chances in that home match to do what we've done in previous seasons, to come through late in the season, to get what we need to get in order to secure what we're trying to get. In previous seasons, we all know it was relegation. In this scenario, hopefully it's with Champions League. But ultimately, I'm going to be peaceful regardless of what happens. But I definitely agree with it, kind of everything that you've sort of outlined in terms of how things need to fall in order to make that favorable for us against Chelsea to at minimum get a point. Hopefully Villa starts to drop off a little bit. Who do they have? They've got they got Bournemouth this week. Yeah. And they got Tottenham at home and Man United away. This is
but it's that game week 37 that I mentioned previously, because if game week 37 is the one that's a few days before the Europa League final, and so I'm already writing off Tottenham and Man United in that game week. So it's all about game week 36. I moved to Raf because I know we really are against time and you've got to go. So, is it about game week 36 now and us making sure that we get that win and hoping that Chelsea lose to Newcastle?
It was all about last game week, and it was all about the game week beforehand. It's about every single game week, and we just need to be honest, there's so many permutations. I know Paul very much focuses on and likes the permutation that actually Chelsea beat Newcastle then lose to Arsenal, we win our 2 games, and then we just handshake with Chelsea. The big man handshakes with Todd Bowley, and we just basically just kick the ball at each other and no one scores a goal, and we both actually qualify for the Champions League. So there is that scenario that we can do. I think it is critical that Arsenal go out to PSG because they will rest for that game in game week 37. But we just need to, because Newcastle are playing Chelsea. Weirdly, the worst scenario for us. Actually, to be fair, it's still destiny in our hands. If we beat Leicester and we beat West Ham, then we go into the final game with destiny still in our hands. So I would just, not worry about everyone else. The Newcastle and Chelsea game will play out the way that it does. If there is a winner, that suddenly focuses who we super hope are the ones that are going to drop away rather than the other one. And we just go with it on that basis. I think Villa will really struggle going away to Bournemouth. Bournemouth have suddenly found a bit of mojo again. They've got something to play for massively. So do you know what? Let the chips fall wherever they may be. Let's just focus on Leicester, put our head back above the parapet, see what the situation is. And then, do you know what? If it's game week 37, all we need to do is just go to West Ham. Apparently there's that wars in the dressing room with Potter, and there's massive player unrest there as well. So why don't we just go there and get 3 points? But the 3 points against Leicester start now, get the mojo back in our dressing room, and then just go to West Ham and win there. And then it looks infinitely rose. Doesn't matter what anyone else has done. It looks infinitely rosier than where we are right now.
Danscape, a quick 35, 40 seconds on the run-in.
We've got enough to beat Leicester and West Ham, even in the performances we've seen. They're not as good teams as the teams we've been playing. So we have got enough to get our 1-0 wins, whatever we need. And then the Chelsea home atmosphere, everything about that game is perfect for us to properly get behind the team and just pull off one of those last day magic moments like we've seen recently. My main energy is the big Ron vibes, because if you remember that 98-99 season, he won all 3 of the last games. So Hugo Porfirio, Chris Bart-Williams, that team, that's the vibes we need to channel into this current squad to just go out and win our last 3 games.
Love that. Okay, guys, we are out of time. We're going to quickly go round with the score prediction for Leicester on a Sunday, Raf.
2-1 to us.
And Danscape?
Ooh, I actually think 1-0.
And Richard Spray?
I'm going 3-0.
And I'm going to go 4-0. I really feel like, we are going to be coming at them now. But those big Ron vibes for the end of the season are now hopefully going to be coming out of the woodwork to help us. Listen, guys, we're out of time. I want to say thank you to Raf, to Danscape, my co-host Richard Spray over in Oklahoma. We'll be back after Leicester to do a review of all of that happens. Listen, guys, Europa League, it might well be. Champions League is what we hope it will be. One thing you can be definitely certain about, it's going to be fun.
Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.